Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to a Monday video here as I try to get back on my previous schedule of throwing in the occasional Monday and every now and then Wednesday upload with a film I was anxious to check out when I first heard about it kind of going into development, but then not so interested as I started hearing some early talk going around, which was a bit negative. Wasn't really sure what to think or how excited to be, but anyways, this video is for Frankenstein from 2025, inspired by the book by Mary Shelley, as well as being inspired by previous film adaptations, and more on that in just a little bit. Written for the screen and directed by Guillermo del Toro, who brought us other films such as Kronos, Shape of Water, Hellboy 1 and 2, Nightmare Alley, among some of his works, and starring Oscar Isaacs, Jacob Elordi, Christoph Waltz, and Mia Goth. The official synopsis for this interpretation is as follows. Dr. Victor Frankenstein, a brilliant but egotistical scientist, brings a creature to life in a monstrous experiment that ultimately leads to the undoing of both the creator and his tragic creation. Now, this one had a very limited theatrical run and then was put onto Netflix, which I still don't really understand how that model is profitable, but at any rate, I was excited about hearing Del Toro taking on this project and making this film, and also kind of excited that it was already available for me to watch at home, that it already came out. But I started seeing some chatter online that wasn't really all that great about this one. Just I was just seeing some weird reactions to it, but I decided to check it out for myself, to kind of go in with an open mind, and I queued it up this weekend and can see why some may have some issue with it, but probably mainly because this is like a very cold and slow film at times. Shot wonderfully, simply gorgeous, and having some great performances. It really does stay true to the book overall in that feel of the story, but it does take a lot of major departures from the book. Now, I had reread Frankenstein a few months back and even rewatched the 1990s Kenneth Branagh film with Robert De Niro as a creature. I was kind of reminded of just how different that book was from so many of the interpretations that I've seen over the years, especially what is probably most commonly thought of as far as those entries goes is the Universal Pictures one from 31. Most interpretations I see put a lot more emphasis on the creation of this creature, and the creature getting into trouble, wreaking havoc, villagers and panic and such. But the book, very different, much more slow, dramatic, and especially philosophical. What it means to take on the role of God in creating life, what it would mean for this creature, their place in society, and so on. But in this film, Del Toro made, a lot of changes and seems to be trying to mix aspects of the book, which are usually either overshadowed or diminished or even written out entirely from film adaptations, such as the more dramatic and philosophical aspects, while he's also mixing that with adding what we've seen in other films in the past. Some of the items that we're a little bit more familiar with or just kind of stuck to us a little bit more. But, with that we get more about the science, the creation, everything that Dr. Frankenstein is kind of discovering along the way, plus the sheer strength of this creature and this ability to survive, which could cause him to just live forever. For me, all of this was a really great balance. Sure, the film is a bit long, it's 2.5 hours long, and those more drawn out and dramatic aspects cause some portions of it to drag a little bit. I still felt overall this was a great mix of those two sides of what we normally see with Frankenstein, whether it's reading in the book or watching it in another film adaptation. We get that heavy stuff mixed with the more visually impactful portions, back and forth throughout. But looking back at some of those earlier reactions I've seen from others regarding this, especially from some who I know and really respect their opinion, and in many cases even align, completely with their opinion on a lot of different films, I think the best I can figure is that maybe they had a different expectation going into this film. Looking at the dark style Del Toro can bring to screen in a really beautiful way, perhaps some of them maybe wanted a retelling of other versions they have seen before, or maybe those more exciting aspects, the lab and the lightning and Igor and the whole It's Alive thing and all that. Maybe some of that stuck with them a little bit more than those other aspects, and they just wanted to see a Del Toro spun version of that, or maybe of some of the other interpretations. That's just the most I can kind of guess. But for me, and perhaps this is because I'd so recently revisited that book, I saw a mix of what worked better than what I'd seen Kenneth Branagh do in that version, which also attempted to bring in more aspects of the book. And don't get me wrong, I love the 1931 version as well as Bride of Frankenstein. There were great works back then, but a lot of the ones from that time frame, whether they be Frankenstein, Dracula, or even Wizard of Oz, there were a lot of liberties taken with bringing that source material to the screen. So when I would read the books that those are based on, I was always really surprised at all of those different changes that have been put into place, and I'm always up for a new interpretation on something, but especially if they're trying to stay closer to that source than what we had initially done for some other films, let's say. And this one really seemed to kind of bridge that gap between what the book was really about and focused on and what the 1931 or Kenneth Branagh or Hammer films or other spin-offs, were inspired films along this line of creating life. It's kind of mixing those two aspects, the interpretations and the book, pretty well within this film. And any of those changes that I recognized as really just being completely different from the book or taken out entirely, nothing really felt missed. I thought that Del Toro brought the best of both worlds to screen, and his overall style was amazing as usual. And if you're a fan of films such as, Crimson Peak and The Shape of Water and Nightmare Alley especially, a lot of that style is represented here as well. Everything that I was excited about when I heard about Del Toro's interest in making this film was fulfilled with this latest Frankenstein. And as indicated simply by mentioning those actors in the film, we get some really great performances. Everyone did a great job, especially with their, with their previous work, or as expected with their previous work. Though it was kind of weird to hear Mia Goth without that southern accent that I'm so used to hearing from that Maxine trilogy. Everybody brought their A game, and it really showed up really well on screen. But now, as for this creature in particular, this may prove to be one of my favorite portrayals. Elordi played a great journey for this creature of this strong but dumb newborn kind of slowly figuring out who and what it is, what the world is, and kind of growing and changing mentally, as well as preserving the family aspect from the book, that blind old man and his family who he's helping out, and they kind of assume that he's this forced spirit that's been helping them. I think that was a great move to kind of help us understand and connect with this creature more in a way that we did in the book that sometimes we don't see in other films. He displayed strength and vulnerability at the same time. His frame was muscular, but still made to look like it was patched together and not monstrously huge. But all in all, I would say that I definitely really enjoyed this interpretation, sticking closer to the book in some portions while pulling inspiration from previous filmed adaptations in others. Great effects and style, great performances, as long as one goes in with the expectation that this does work in some of those more slower aspects of the books, the philosophical side. I think viewers will find that this one is more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out my latest quick video here for Frankenstein from 2025, which is on Netflix. Definitely worth checking out. Just keep in mind it is not Reanimator or The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster or any of those Hammer entries. It really feels like its own thing, blending the original book aspects with some of those other interpretations and inspirations in film, with that heavy, gorgeous Del Toro kind of style throughout. Anyways, that's all I've got for this one. I have a few links coming up in just a moment which may be worth your viewing. Some videos, if you haven't seen them, that are kind of related in some ways. So if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if not already subscribed, consider subscribing. And I will see you in the next one.